Israel and Hamas have moved closer to agreeing on a 30-day ceasefire in Gaza and the release of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners. That's according to Reuters sources, coming as Israel pressed ahead with its biggest assault in a month in southern Gaza. Qatar, the US and Egypt have been mediating between the two sides for weeks over the release of Israeli captives in return for a break in fighting, the release of Palestinian prisoners and more aid to the enclave. But the plan is being held up, the sources said, with Hamas and Israel at odds over how to permanently end the Gaza war. US, Qatari and Egyptian authorities did not immediately respond to requests for comment on the Reuters report. Though on Tuesday, the White House did confirm that Middle East envoy Brett McGurk was in Cairo for active talks over hostage release and aid, while declining to comment on reports of any ceasefire deal.
Certainly one of the things he's in the region talking about is the potential for another hostage deal, which would require a humanitarian pause of some length to get that done.
Two Egyptian security sources said there was work underway to convince Hamas to accept a one-month truce to be followed by a permanent ceasefire. However, Hamas is requesting guarantees that the permanent ceasefire would be carried out to agree to the initial truce. An Israeli government spokesperson said Tuesday the country's goals of destroying Hamas's governing and military capabilities remain the same.
There will be no ceasefire that leaves the hostages in Gaza and Hamas in power. Beyond that, we have nothing to elaborate.
Still, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is under increasing pressure to reach a ceasefire deal from his war cabinet and families of hostages. Despite the difficulty of bridging the gap in the positions of the two sides, a source briefed on the discussions told Reuters a deal could be agreed to at any minute.
The White House on Tuesday said its Middle East envoy, Brett McGurk, was in Cairo for what it called, quote, active discussions aimed at securing the release of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza and securing a humanitarian pause in Israel's assault.
Brett is in the region. He was in Cairo today, as a matter of fact, and he'll have other stops along the way.
Here's White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby.
The discussions are sober and serious. Again, I don't want to get ahead of where we are or give you, I can't give you odds on if and when we'll be able to get there, but the conversations are very sober and serious about trying to get another hostage deal in place.
News of the talks comes a day after a report from Axios saying Israel sent a proposal to Hamas through mediators in Qatar and Egypt, offering a multi-phase pause of up to 2 months in exchange for the release of all remaining hostages. A representative of Qatar said mediation efforts were ongoing, and Kirby on Tuesday would not say if the report was accurate. More than 100 hostages were released in a 7-day ceasefire late last year, but more than 100 are believed still held captive, and their families are turning to protest against the government.
We wake up, we see what our Prime Minister says, we see what the Qatar says, what the Americans say, what the Egyptians say, what Hamas say. Every day is a struggle, every day is new.
Itai Segal is the nephew of hostage Keith Segal and spent a night in the cold outside the Prime Minister's residence.
We are where the Prime Minister is during the week. We are here to haunt him and to remind him that his job right now is to bring our loved ones back and nothing else.
Israel has said its operation in Gaza is aimed at eradicating Hamas and returning all of the hostages taken when gunmen from the Islamist group attacked Israeli communities on October 7th, killing 1,200 people and taking 240 captives. More than 25,000 Palestinians have been killed since Israel embarked on its war in Gaza.
There will be no ceasefire that leaves the hostages in Gaza and Hamas in power. Beyond that, we have nothing to elaborate.
An Israeli government spokesperson on Tuesday reiterated the country's objectives, ruling out any deal that left Hamas in control of any part of Gaza.
אמון הוא משאב שלמנהיגות אסור להגיע איתו לאוברדרפט. והמנהיגות הנוכחית, ראש הממשלה בראשה, הגיע לשם. זה לא אפס.
כי בלעדיכם אנחנו לא יכולים. לירי בחושך, החיילים שלנו בחושך ונעשה להם אור. באנו חושך לגרש, ואנחנו נגרש את ילדה שמפיצה רק טוב לעולם. לירי לא צריכה לשבת עוד דקה, עוד שעה, אפילו עוד יום בגיהנום עם המרצחים האלה. וכשאני אומר לירי, זה כמובן על כל 134 החטופים. סיפורי החטופים שחזרו רק המחישו לנו את הזוועות שהם עוברים.
Hopefully.